So I was thinking to myself, who was the first person to bring Irish music to the world stage? So I tried my hand at good old Google, but to no avail. So I decided to ask AI instead, who also didn't really give me what I was looking for. No surprise there. So then, I decided to resort to the only reliable source of information, the rabbit hole. So if I want to find out who was the first famous person who was singing Irish songs, my first thoughts were, what were the stages of development of entertainment globally, right? Because that's a very important thing to mention, and that's a very important factor. Today we have the internet, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, to name a few. We have, of course, TV, concerts, but they're less accessible than the online platforms. So let's stick a label on this as the internet age. The internet age is where you can get famous by doing silly things rather than pure musical talent. It's also completely overcrowded with stuff, so it's hard to find the good stuff. Like if you go on YouTube, for example, and one good look for Irish music, and you'll be completely overwhelmed with fake AI songs pretending to be the real thing. I did a video about that a while back, by the way, just to show you how bad it actually is. Check it out here, because I don't usually laugh at stuff that I do, but I really enjoyed watching it back. It's absolutely ridiculous. Clearly the internet age is not where we're going to find what we're looking for, so we're just going to move on. Okay, so the stages of entertainment development, that's what we're going to call it. We're going to go backwards, before the internet. We're talking about things like TV.
How does that gobshite get on the television?
Radio, CDs, records, you name it. I know we have them today, but things were less digital then. Let's stick a wee label on this era. I'm going to call it the real age, because let's admit it, the years before the internet were special. For me personally, anyway. There's a ton of nostalgia around it. These are the years I grew up. I have vivid memories sitting on my floor in my living room with huge headphones on with a big wire coming out of it. None of these AirPods shite that you see today that cost €1,000, plugged into my dad's massive stereo that, I kid you not, could handle 4 CDs at a time, and a record player on top of it. This thing was high tech. But you guessed it. Clearly, we had many folk bands here and singers championing Irish music as well, well up until this time. The Dubliners, Clancy Brothers and Tommy Macon, Enya, on the more contemporary side of things, Wolf Tones, Pogues, Keela, Horselips, Planksty, Moving Hearts, Christy Moore. Obviously, you can see here, this is like throughout and after the folk revival. There's just an absolute ton here. I couldn't name them all. I'll end up with a video like that, counting to 100,000 that I just showed you a wee while ago. You can argue that the Clancy Brothers here were the first to bring the image on stage, right? Through TV. But I'm not looking for that. There's definitely someone, or even a group, who were well before this, who was championing ballads and music before the Clancy Brothers. Clearly, again, we have to go further back. So I asked myself then, what was the primary source of entertainment for people before TV? Cinema, live performances, radio, and records, of course. These are the years spanning roughly from the 1880s until the 1930s. Maybe. Just maybe, I'm going to find what I'm looking for here. But let's stick a label on this era. We're going to call this one the recording age, as there were live performances for the most part, but a lot of people were beginning to use records and things like that in their households. At this point, what am I thinking? I'm thinking the kind of performer that I'm looking for are probably going to be along the lines of operatic singers, sopranos, tenors, baritones, what have you. But what I found out was that there was kind of a mix here. There were singers who performed on stage to crowds. There were also these same singers who were essentially the pioneers of the early recording era. And interestingly, a lot of people only listened to them to see how the records worked. In some cases that I read, they didn't care very much for the content within it, in the early years anyway. But surely in this recording era, I'm going to find what I'm looking for. We've got records, we've got radio in the latter years. Popular singers in this time period that I found were like the famous John McCormack. He was born in Athlone in Ireland in 1884. He was one of 11 children in his family, 5 of whom died in their early years. Absolutely horrific when you come to think of it. Just goes to show that the life expectancy back then was just grim, to say the least. In his later years, John became one of the most celebrated singers in the world. He had also made hundreds of recordings, many of which you can hear today. He had forced the music world to treat Irish folk ballads with the same reverence as operatic numbers. In this recording era, he dominated it as a premier artist for the Victor label. Throughout World War I, he also recorded and performed nationalist songs like The Wearing of the Green amidst rising tensions of the period, not to forget 1916 Rising, which if you haven't seen it already, I have a video about those few years and exploring 3 popular Irish songs and how they all show different unique perspectives on the events. But anyway, to sum it up, John McCormack was the first global superstar, thanks to the various platforms of entertainment throughout these years, famously being recorded on both wax cylinders and 78 RPMs. Not only because of the platforms, of course not. The man could sing. I read that he could sing 64 notes on one breath. I tried it myself there off camera and I was able to do 53 notes on one breath. But at the end I sounded like the last few squeezes of a thing of ketchup. But anyway, ketchup references aside, there were others worth mentioning around this time who had famously championed Irish ballads as well on stage. George J. Gaskin, born in Belfast, Ireland, and moved to the United States in 1880, eventually becoming an American citizen in 1892. His first recordings were made in 1891, possibly making him the second vocalist to record commercially for the Edison North American Phonograph Company. That's a great name. He was known as the silver-voiced Irish tenor, and specialised in Irish ballads and Tin Pan Alley songs. Another one, Dan W. Quinn, born in America to parents with Irish roots, he was active in the 1890s. He specialised in the stage Irish comic songs that were popular in vaudeville. While less noble than McCormack's ballads, Quinn popularised the fast-paced, witty Irish songs like McGinty at the Bottom of the Sea. For the home listener, John W. Myers, little is known of his life, but it's thought that he was born in Wales, and he came to the United States around the age of 12. He recorded Wearing of the Green as well as other tearjerkers. He was one of the primary singers selling the sad immigrant narrative on wax cylinders before McCormack perfected it. But I think we're getting close. I feel like I could call it here and say that John McCormack was the first. But at this point, I did want to dig even deeper into that rabbit hole and see, was there anyone else that stood out? But let's label this age, the age before recording, the social age. That will make more sense in a minute. At this point, we don't have 78s or wax cylinders. Before this, technically, the only way to record any form of sound was a one-way system. You could see the sound waves produced, but you couldn't listen back. Thanks to this crazy-looking thing called a phonoautograph, invented by, excuse my pronunciation, French printer Edward Leon Scott de Martinville in 1857. You did, however, of course, have sheet music, which obviously still to this day is a way to record the notes played and play them back. At this point, I definitely started to notice the shift in things. Entertainment began to feel less global, probably because of accessibility. You didn't have 78s or wax cylinders to ship around your music nationally or even internationally. You did have sheet music like I mentioned, but you were very limited to being able to play that back. You had to be able to read it in the first place. At this point, I started reading things that people would sell sheet music in the town square, for example. You would pay for the tune or song, and then away you go. You would play it at home, or someone else would play it for you. Things were far more insulated. It's easy to understand why it would have been difficult to commercialise this. You had Thomas Moore, for example. He had huge collections of tunes and songs, but he wasn't necessarily a performer, he was a poet. But in essence, people essentially gathered together to listen to music. They gathered in houses, halls, listening to music on smaller scales than the likes of radio, TV, or Spotify. It was more intimate, but I ended up finding one person in the early 1800s, Catherine Hayes. Catherine Hayes, who lived through 1818 to 1861, was the world's first true Hibernian prima donna, a title that carried her from the poverty of Limerick to the gold mines of California. According to London's Daily Express, Hayes was the Madonna of her day. She was the 19th century operatic equivalent of the world's most famous pop star. Though she was classically trained in Milan and celebrated for her roles in Donizetti and Verdi operas, her true legacy lies in how she elevated Irish folk music to global prominence. She used an interesting strategy, a Trojan horse strategy, luring audiences in with the prestige of Italian opera, then bringing down the house with encores of Irish ballads. While a lot of Irish songs were performed as novelties, really getting at the comedy of some of them, she championed them as serious art. She was the tipping point, paving the way for the likes of John McCormack in later years. Her commitment to this identity was best illustrated during a command performance for Queen Victoria at Buckingham Palace in 1849. After dazzling the court with Italian arias, the Queen requested an encore. Instead of choosing another safe classical piece, Hayes reportedly flashed a mischievous grin and launched into Kathleen Miverine, the music of which was written by Englishman Frederick Crouch, but the lyrics were written by an Irishwoman called Mrs. Crawford. The song is about separation and goodbye at its core, which hit hard around the years of the famine, as you can imagine. One line in particular hit very hard.
It may be for years, and it may be forever, then
Thinking of the coffin ships where many died, or just the vast separation with no communication for possibly years on end. Whether singing for royalty or for rough labourers in the California gold rush, where miners paid thousands in today's money just to hear a voice from home, Hayes established the blueprint for the Irish superstar. She proved that Irish songs had market value, rivaling the greatest operas of Europe. Some of her most famous songs that she performed include The Last Rose of Summer. This was her signature song. She's credited with making it a global standard. Another one was The Harp That Once Through Tara's Halls, a deeply historical song lamenting the lost glory of Irish chieftains. O Steer My Bark to Erin's Isle, a song explicitly about the longing to return to Ireland. Sivorneen Dílis, this is a traditional song, a Gaelic love song, and Sivorneen Dílis translate roughly to faithful sweetheart. You can correct my pronunciation down in the comments, but she had often performed this one to highlight the Irish language's melody. Many of the songs as well, the lyrics were written by Thomas Moore. And look, we could go back even further than that, but as I started to find, things really became more and more insulated, more and more small scale. Musicians would travel within the local area, like the travelling Irish harpers, notably the famous Irish composer Turlough O'Carolan. In a way, he was the first on the grand scale of those years. But when we're solely talking about famous or popular and global stage, things really didn't start taking off until the 1800s. So on our way back to the present day, our way back out of that rabbit hole, in this social age when gathering together to listen to music was the primary means of musical entertainment, Catherine Hayes first championed Irish music on the bigger stages, even performing for the likes of Queen Victoria. The recording era shortly after her saw names like John McCormack bringing Irish songs even more popularity globally thanks to wax cylinders and 78s. Things were beginning to become more commercial at this point. After that then, we have the real age. Now that I've gotten to this part of the video, honestly, I think I could have come up with a better name for that. Tell me down in the comments what you think would have been a better label for this era. I will take the best title and I'm going to put it up on my website with a shout out to your comment. This era spans a huge amount of time, but we had the likes of the Clancy brothers kicking things off on TV, and then things accelerated with the Dubliners, the Wolf Tones, too many to name like I said. Things were really picking up pace at this point. And then we have today, the internet age, the digital age. I read someone say that recently, nobody has invented a new form of music that has shocked the masses, like punk music, for example. In a world of instant accessibility to a lot of things, you would think that that would accelerate things a little bit, wouldn't you? I want to know from you though. Tell me, in this day and age, who are the best Irish bands who are up and coming at the minute? Like, we're talking about trad fusion, folk, ballads, whatever. Things could be different in the United States than they would be in the UK, Ireland, Australia even. With so many artists and so many platforms, things can get diluted. But tell me in the comments your thoughts. It'll give everyone who reads the comments a bit more authentic listening material, rather than the AI folk shite that you hear on your automatic YouTube playlist. But look, before you go, please hit that like button and drop a comment down below. It really helps the video reach more people. Honestly, this video for me was one of the most fun to make because the research, the writing, the editing, I really enjoyed it all. Now, I hope you did too. But anyway, just a reminder that if you want to grab something green for St. Patrick's Day, as you do, have a look at the shop and use that 10% code at checkout. As always as well, I want to give a huge shout out to our channel members. Here's your names up on screen now. Thanks so much for your continued support. It makes it possible for me to make these videos so regularly. So really, thanks a million. If you'd like to join them and support the channel a little bit more than just subscribing, click that join button down below or check out the links in the description for more information. But look, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you have a great day. Slán go fóill, cheers.